Hello, everyone. My name is Abby, and I'm the young adult assistant at the Twin Lakes Library Systems, and I use she, her pronouns. So today I am going to be doing our next installment of our Summer Reading Club program for Must Read Monday, and I am going to be talking to you about classic YA books. So I just wanted to kind of clarify, so normally when you hear classic, you think of like kind of older novels, like Little Women or Anne of Green Gables or Treasure Island, but I'm doing a little bit of a twist on that, and I'm really just talking about books in the YA genre that are kind of considered like classics, and that a lot of people who are fans of young adult books have read and have really enjoyed, and they talk about pretty frequently. So I have 3 different books here to sort of talk to you about today that are all very different in terms of genre, so that's exciting, and it kind of broadens, your prospects if you decide that you want to read any of these. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. So I'm back at my house so I can show you my books again today so you can see what these look like. But the first book that I'm going to be talking to you about is Clockwork Angel. There you go. By Cassandra Clare, and this book is on RBDigital in ebook and audiobook format, and Common Sense Media recommends it for ages 14 and up. So, this book is set in Victorian era London. I believe it's the exact date, is 1878, but don't quote me on that. But we follow our main character, Tessa Gray, as she first enters London, when she starts to realize that there are actually supernatural forces that she was unaware of until she gets there, out and about. And while she's there, she meets 2 boys named Will and Jem, who are both well aware that this world exists and sort of help her navigate it because she has no idea what's going on, but they are well aware of it. So they kind of help teach and train her to understand and sort of combat this world. So in this book specifically, because this is actually a series, the series itself is called The Infernal Devices, but in this book in particular, the 3 of them and a couple of their other allies are investigating the Pandemonium Club, which is a club that is frequented by supernatural creatures that includes like vampires and demons and warlocks, and even some humans are there, but for the most part it's for the supernatural. And this club is trying to the people in this club are trying to take over England through the use of these clockwork creatures. And so Tessa, Will, and Jem are trying to stop that before it happens. So, why I loved this book. So, first off, I love that it's a series. I always say that. The next thing I would say about this is it's a really developed world, and there's a reason for that. So, if you are not familiar with Cassandra Clare, she's built an entire universe. It's called the Shadowhunters universe. And it has a bunch of lore, and she has, I think, 3 completed series in this world, and then I think 2 ongoing series, and then like 2 or 3 like short story collections that she and other authors have written for this world. So it's a very, very, very big world. It has a lot of characters. There's a lot going on. So there's a lot of content. So the world is really well developed. So this series in particular is, I think, the earliest, in terms of time period. So her first book series in this world, The Mortal Instruments, that came out first. But The Infernal Devices, this one, came out the first book came out in the middle of her writing that first book series. And it's technically like a prequel series to that series. You can read either one first. I personally have read all of these before I ventured into her other series, but some people tell you to read it another way. Some people will say you should read it in chronological order of publication. It's entirely up to you if you decide to do that. But anyways, the main point I'm trying to make here, it's a very well-developed world. There's a lot of content in it, so I don't think she ever struggles with explaining to you what's happening, and it's very well thought out. So, the next thing about this book, I love Cassandra Clare's characters. This is my favorite series by her, or my favorite thing that she's written. And I think it's mostly because I love the characters the most in this series. I think that Tessa is a very strong female lead that you can really easily root for in it. Will and Jem, who are the main male leads in this book, are wonderful. Personally, I love them both. I kind of tend to lean more towards Will. Some people tend to lean more towards Jem. It's a very polarizing topic in the fandom world of the Shadowhunters kind of book series, but personally I like Will is my favorite, but I love them both. So if you decide to read them, that's something you could explore and see who you like better. I will say that this book is a little bit of a bigger book. Let's see how many pages it is exactly. It is 482 pages, which is a bit of a bigger book, but I was never bored when reading it. I think it's very well paced and the action is really strong. So I definitely think that if the size intimidates you, don't let it intimidate you. The payoff is really good. And then, like I was saying earlier, because the other series was published first, while reading this, if you have read the other series, there are a lot of really cool little nods in this series for you to notice. So I just like that she mixes that in. And then I think she does a really cool mixing of genres in here. So it's historical fiction, it's fantasy, it's supernatural. Like there's a lot of different genres kind of all tied into this book, and they all work super well together. So that's my first recommendation. My second recommendation is going to be We Were Liars. So that's what that looks like. I have a deluxe version of this book, which just means it comes with extra content, but the other version is like basically the same cover, but just like blue and green stuff. So this book is by Lockhart, and it is on RBDigital audiobook, and Common Sense Media recommends it for ages 13 and up. And so I'm going to do something a little different. Normally I write down my own sort of plot summary for this, but this book is best read not knowing a lot about it. So I'm going to read you the summary that the author provides on Goodreads. So here you go. A beautiful and distinguished family, a private island, a brilliant damaged girl, a passionate political boy, a group of 4 friends, the liars, whose friendship turns destructive, a revolution, an accident, a secret, lies upon lies, true love, the truth. That's it. So that is all that the author gives you in terms of description. That's all I really want to give you in terms of how I would summarize the book. So I'm just going to leave it there. The only thing I will say, it is classified as like a suspense mystery novel. So, why I loved this book. It's a suspense novel, so I really personally love suspense and mystery novels. I think I'm happy to say that the genre has, like the subgenre has been growing in YA, but I definitely think that thrillers and mystery novels are usually tend to be more pointed towards an adult audience, so I'm excited to see more being put into the young adult kind of literary area. So that's really exciting. And this is like, when I first started really getting into YA, this is the book that everyone would talk about. I don't know why like it got so popular. I mean, it's very good, so like I'm happy that it got really popular, but like I don't know what made it so popular and so like read within the genre, but it just happened. So I think that's cool. Let's see. This book is super compelling. I read it in probably 3 hours. And I'm kind of a slow reader, so that was pretty impressive, which I just could not put it down. I think I took like a little break because I was tired, but for the most part, I don't think that you'll want to take a break when reading this, just because it's so like, you just want to know what happens in it. So I think that's really good. The climax of this book is absolutely perfect in its delivery. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm not going to say anything more. I just think it's perfect. the writing in this book is super strong. So the author is able to be both really descriptive and also reveal almost nothing, like, which is impressive because you feel like one would probably suffer when trying to do both, but Lockhart somehow manages to do both and make it sound excellent. So I really liked that. The side characters in this book are all very important. There's not one that I thought was throwaway. I think all of them were meaningful to the delivery of the story and the plot and the stuff that happens in it. So I think also it has like the perfect amount of drama. So I'm personally like a big fan of like dramatic television and movies. And I love it personally. So I think that like this kind of book would make like a great like dramatic teen suspense film, or TV show, just because of the way it's delivered, the characters in it, like it all just fits together so well to make just such a really good like dramatic experience. So that's the reason I loved it. So really quick, I wanted to, before I talk about the last book, give you our summer reading club code for this one. So this one is going to be classic. So that's how it's spelled. I put it on a sheet of paper this time. There you go. So you're just going to put that in so we can make sure that you get counted for this. So the last book that I am going to be talking about is The Book Thief by Marcus Zuzak, and it's on RBDigital audiobook, and Common Sense Media recommends it for ages 13 and up. So I do want to say before I like go into a big description of this book is it actually was not originally marketed as YA. It's over time been put into the YA category, but it was never actually like originally marketed as being for a YA audience, which I just think is an interesting fact to know about it. But this is what it looks like. So this book is set in 1939 in Nazi Germany, and a young girl named Liesel, while burying her brother after he has passed away, she finds the Grave Digger's Handbook, and this starts an overwhelming love of reading. She becomes like obsessed with books. So after that happens, Liesel moves in with her foster parents, the Hubbards, and she sort of has developed this love of reading, but she can't read, and her foster father, I believe his name is Hans, teaches her how to read. And after that, Liesel soon starts stealing books wherever she can find them. So like at book burning, she'll find books that she'll take that haven't burned yet. There is the mayor's wife in her town who has a library that Liesel will take books from and read. And so just like an overwhelming love and a like desire to have and consume literature. And then also within this book, Liesel's family is secretly hiding a Jewish man named Max in their basement, who Liesel ends up befriending and starts to expand their relationship, and Max sort of start to expand Liesel's understanding and perception of the world that she exists within. So, why I loved this book. First off, I do want to say before I go a little bit further into this descriptor, I do want to as a warning, this is not a very happy book. So if you are not mentally prepared to read something that's pretty sad, I would maybe not suggest this book, but if you think you could handle this, then I think you should go for it. But yeah, so why I love this book. Liesel, I think, is a really strong main character to follow. I think her journey and the things she does and learns are really compelling to follow as a reader, and you really get to see her grow up and change and develop a lot throughout the novel, which is, really cool to see. It's cool to see how, over the period of time, how she changes and grows. I think that this book is easily accessible to audiences of all ages. So, there have been a couple books that I've said that before. I believe like The Hate U Give and On the Come Up were books that I particularly mentioned. But this one as well, I think, like I said, this wasn't originally classified as YA. It's been kind of grouped into the YA genre, I think, because Liesl is a younger protagonist. But, you know, again, that doesn't mean that, like, adults couldn't get something out of this book if they read it. And I think that a lot of what the book talks about is something that needs to be more explored. So, it needs to be talked about more. I think there are a lot of interesting questions about morality that are brought up that I think are really well done within the text. And even though Liesl is a younger main character, you never feel like that. I don't know how to describe this very well. It doesn't feel like she's dumb or like she is, like she acts like a regular child, like a 10-year-old would, because she starts off as 10 in this book, but like she acts like a 10-year-old, but it's never like it feels too young, like you can't like read it, like it's written to make sure that anyone of any age could read it. So, yeah. The prose in this book are incredibly strong. So when I say the prose, I just mean the writing in this book is very beautiful. A lot of quotable lines in it. I have them all bookmarked on Goodreads. I also think that the narration style in this book is it's particularly very interesting, and I enjoyed it a lot. It's actually, the book is narrated by Death, which I think has become, those kind of types of narrations, not Death in particular, but like those types of narrations have become more prevalent, but I think it was very original when this book first came out, and I think it does it really well. So I think there's a lot of really healthy and well done character development in this book. So like I said, it's kind of done over a long period of time, and I think that works to the book's advantage because you get to see these characters develop a lot. Because they do things that will make you uncomfortable as a reader, and kind of they will upset you, but it's interesting to see them develop as characters. It's not an easy book to read, but it is a book that should be read. This book also really stays with you. So I read this book Christmas of 2018. I finished it on Christmas in 2018, which is almost 2 years ago, and I still think about it a lot. Like anytime I pass by my shelf, I'll look at it and I'll just think about it because it just had a really big impact on me when I was reading it. So it's a memorable story, and it's something you're not going to like, it's not just going to leave you as soon as you've finished it, which I think says a lot to the power of the plot, the characters, and the writing in the book. And then just one quick thing I wanted to throw in, there's a movie, The Book Thief has a movie, and I actually think it's a pretty good movie. Normally I don't necessarily think that book to movie adaptations, as most readers tend to feel, are very strong, but I actually think it was a pretty good movie. So I recommend that too. So those are my 3 recommendations. I hope you have a great Monday, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.